Hi everyone. So between last October and this April, I read just about everything from Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere. It's now August, so I've given myself some time to let all of these works sort of percolate in my brain, and I wanted to do a tier list. I've seen a lot of booktubers do these, and they're a lot of fun to watch, and hopefully you'll enjoy mine. I also think that mine might be a little different because I read them in such a concentrated period of time. A lot of times your thoughts and reception of a work might be different if you're waiting for it quite a long time. So I hope you enjoy my rankings. I'd love to hear at the end of the video if you just put in the comments the things you disagree with me about, because I know a few of these are going to be kind of controversial in the Cosmere realm. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm not going to do the order that you see at the bottom. I'm going to do the order that I read them. If you don't know what the meanings are, S, A, B, C are letter grades. S is kind of from the Japanese school where it's super or superb, which is above an A. And then question mark at the bottom. A couple of the short stories in Arcanum Unbounded I've already forgotten, and there's a couple other ones that I'll put down there as well. But there's no need for a D or an F for a Brandon Sanderson work because the guy's amazing. He pretty much always sticks the landing and always takes you on a great journey during his books. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one I read was Mistborn, which is still one of my favorites. I love the characters. Vin and Kelsier in particular are fantastic. It features some of the best world building in anything I've read in recent memory. And of course, Sanderson sticks the landing. So Mistborn will be the first one that I'll put up here. And I think it's S tier. I think it also has one of the best hard magic systems I've ever read. And in many ways, in my opinion, it's kind of the bar that has been set that a lot of people try to aspire to. So I'm going to start right away and put Mistborn, Final Empire in S tier. So then the second book of Mistborn is Well of Ascension, which had a lot of great moments in it. In many ways, it's just as good. Some would say it might even be better than the first Mistborn novel. I think it's just a cut below, but not much. I think the trilogy in general is fantastic. So I'm going to take Well of Ascension. I'm going to put it A tier. Probably end up near the top of the A tier. Really fine book. And then our conclusion of the Mistborn trilogy is The Hero of Ages. This one might be a little controversial. I know a lot of people did not like the end of the Mistborn saga. Some people love it. I personally loved it. It was not the direction that I necessarily wanted the ending to go, but I thought it was beautiful, and I was filled with wonder and awe with some of the, at least one scene at the very end. So I think Hero of Ages is S tier. So you may disagree, but I'm going to put it up there. And if you've noticed, I'm going to try to be very vague. I'm not going to give any spoilers for any of these books so that, you know, if any of you are interested in reading any of these, you know, maybe this will give you a little idea of what they're about without giving any spoilers. So let's go. I next read Elantris. So I think, no surprise, Elantris was Sanderson's first book, and it shows he wasn't as strong with his character work in this book. I did enjoy the world building. I enjoyed the scope of the story, but, you know, as far as Sanderson versus Sanderson, you know, I think it's a solid C tier book for him. So after I read Elantris, I went to Mistborn Era 2, the Wax and Wane books. And these are set 150 years after the original trilogy. So the first one is The Alloy of Law. And I like the setting a lot more than a lot of people did. It's kind of a mixture of kind of the Wild West with the gunslingers also being able to use magic. And I enjoyed it. A lot of people don't like Westerns. They may not have enjoyed it as much as I did. But I think it's a solid B tier, and I do like the Wax and Wane series. So the second one was Shadows of Self. And Shadows of Self, again, the thing I liked, I think this one was stronger than Alloy of Law. And what I feel that was stronger was you got deeper into the characters, which made it more interesting. And then you also saw more glimpses of what happened between the first Mistborn trilogy and this series. So because of that, I'm going to put it above Alloy of Law, but still a B tier. Then the third book is The Bands of Mourning. And again, I think he just continued to get better with each of these books. In addition to the things I liked about Shadows of Self, this one had higher stakes, and it was just a little bit more heft to this tale. I think it's still B tier, but definitely the best of the Wax and Wayne series. And I'm definitely looking forward to the fourth one, which I think is supposed to be out sometime next year. It seems like he just finished his first draft on it, so looking forward to that. So after I read the Wax and Wayne series, I went on to Warbreaker. And where's Warbreaker? Here you go. All right, so Warbreaker, I need to scroll up a little bit. So Warbreaker is one of the kind of divisive ones that you see in the fandom. I've heard everybody say that it's not very good to it's the best fantasy standalone ever. I'm kind of in the middle of that, but I do lean towards liking it a lot more than disliking it. I think that the world was great. I loved some of the characters, especially the character arcs of Lightsong and Vivenna, and the greater Cosmere implications. So I really enjoyed Warbreaker, so I'm just going to put it A tier, probably just below Well of Ascension. Really strong book. So then, let's see, then I started the Stormlight Archive. So, The Way of Kings. The Way of Kings, I think, is the finest first book of any fantasy book series I've ever read. Great characters, great world building, great scope, and the big Sanderlanche of action at the very end. You know, he plotted so well in this one. Kaladin's backstory is masterful, and it was just a superb S-tier entry at the beginning of this Stormlight Archive series. So I love Way of Kings, and right now that's kind of the bar that everything will be raised to. All right, after that, of course, I went to the second book, which is Words of Radiance. I liked Words of Radiance quite a bit. Not as much as Way of Kings, namely because Way of Kings told a lot of Kaladin's backstory, Words of Radiance told Shallan's, and I just didn't find Shallan's story as compelling as Kaladin's. It's still a great backstory, and I still enjoyed it, and I really loved this book, especially the ending of this one, and I loved where the story was going. But I think it's not quite up to the standard of Way of Kings, in my opinion, but I think it's definitely A-tier material near the top. Okay, so then I went on into Arcanum Unbounded, which is the collection, and you see down here, all of the stories are separated in here as well. So I'm going to give a general recommendation for the big book and then talk about each story just a little bit. So Arcanum Unbounded, I think, is a solid B tier. It has some really great things in it, and some that are just okay, and some that are honestly quite forgettable. So let me go through some of the specifics in that collection. You know, Sanderson is a master of epic fantasy, so the short form isn't necessarily tailored to the way that he writes, as well as, you know, he's better at a 1,000-page book than, you know, a 60-page short story or less. But let's go through those. I have a copy here so that I'm just going to do the book in order. So it starts with The Emperor's Soul. This may be a surprising one for some of you, but I think that The Emperor's Soul is the finest thing that Sanderson's written. It's a novella set in the Elantris world, and I think it's absolutely perfect. I think it won the Hugo. Very, very well deserved. It is some of the finest character work in such a small amount of time. I love The Emperor's Soul, and I think it's kind of the gold standard of Sanderson. The next one is Hope of Elantris. And where are you down here? There you are. And I'm putting this, the first one, in our question mark because I don't really remember it. So it's kind of a forgettable tale. It is one of the shorter ones in the collection, and I just don't really remember enough of it to give an accurate A, B, C, D, or S rating. So we're going to put it in the question mark there. After that, we had the 11th Metal, which I think was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I'm going to put it C tier above Elantris. But it was, you know, anytime we're in Scadrial, the world of Mistborn, I'm kind of happy. So I kind of liked it, but I'm just going to give that a C tier. Because, again, this is Sanderson versus Sanderson, so something has to end up in C tier besides Elantris. All right, Allomancer Jack and the Pits of Elantria. This Eltania. I loved the snarky narrator in this, and I love the snarkiness of the annotator. This was a lot of fun. It's a very slight tale, but I'm going to put it in the middle of this trilogy of Mistborn here in the B tier. I think it's an enjoyable tale that is something I was glad that I read. And then we have Mistborn: A Secret History. So Mistborn: A Secret History, I think I originally would have probably had it here in the B tier, But there's a scene at the end that frankly made me cry. So because of that, I need to move it up to the A tier. There's just a scene at the end of this that is just so beautifully done, and Sanderson did such a great job with this. I think all the novellas in Arcanum Unbounded are strong, but they're also divisive. You know, you hear people say that Mistborn's Secret History is amazing, and then some people say it's not very good. And kind of the same thing with Edge Dancer, but I'll get to that one last. I want to keep in order so I don't miss anything. So White Sand, we got the first couple chapters of that in Arcanum Unbounded, and I'm just going to put it here C tier. I enjoyed the prose chapter better than the graphic novel chapter, and that's just me. I just don't like graphic novels. It's just not my thing. If you love them, that's awesome. Keep reading them. They don't do anything for me, and I don't enjoy them. So because of that, the other White Sand novels are going to go in this question mark because I haven't read them, and I probably won't just because I don't enjoy graphic novels. It's just not my thing. So I'm going to put that there. The next one is Shadows of Silence in the Forest of Hell. This is a really good one. I loved, this is a world that you don't get in any of the novels, but I thought the story was really fine. And I'm going to put this one, I think I'm going to put this one A tier. I think that deserves to be up there. I think it's a very good story. All right, and the next one is Sixth of the Dust. And here's another one that I don't remember this one. So I'm going to put it there in the question marks. All right, and the next divisive one is Edge Dancer. Some people love Edge Dancer. Some people hate Edge Dancer. I'm kind of in the middle. I see what it is. A lot of people don't like Edge Dancer because Lift is a very YA character, and she uses words like awesome, and for many readers, she can be quite annoying. But I find her delightful. I think it's a great change of pace. There's a lot of dark stuff in the Stormlight Archives. So to have a novella about one of the lighter characters who is, very much comic relief in many ways, I think is something that I enjoyed. And this will be a little controversial. I'm going to put Edge Dancer A tier. Maybe B tier. Maybe top of B tier. But I did enjoy Edge Dancer probably more than most. Okay, so we got 3 left. The end of the Cosmere, as we know it at this point, until he finishes Book 5. So these are the ones I think that will be the biggest surprise for people that read the Cosmere. I firmly believe that the final 2 books and the Dawnshard novella, a lot of people, frankly, have rated higher than I think they in actuality are, because you had to wait years. I read them basically in consecutive months, so I didn't have to wait so long. So when I read Oathbringer, I saw a lot of flaws in it, mainly in plotting. This is the first time in any of the Cosmere tales that I really felt that Sanderson needed an editor that was going to be strong with him and tell him, yeah, you have about 200 pages to cut from this. Because the middle of this I really felt dragged on quite a bit. However, I do feel that, man, Dalinar's backstory is so great. So because of that, I'm going to put it A tier, but not as high as any of the others. So I'm going to put it the bottom of the A tier here, but a little bit of cracks, I think, in the story. Dawnshard, I think, is going to be the biggest controversy here because I don't think it really did much. I think it may be setting up something that will happen later in Stormlight, and if that happens, maybe I'll revisit it. But I found it kind of a forgettable novella. As much as I love the Lopen, as much as, any other character, it just didn't really do much for me. So I'm going to put it, C tier, maybe above White Sand, but probably not above Elantris. So that might be a controversial take for some of you. And Rhythm of War, his latest book. Again, this is one, I hate to say it, but I think of the 4 Stormlight Archive books, I think each has diminished a little bit in quality. Now, again, this is Sanderson, so, a subpar Sanderson novel is still better than like 80 or 90% of the fantasy authors out there. But I felt Rhythm of War needed a strong editor. This is another one that I think 20% of the book could have been cut out. Specifically, one character's experiments on the magic system that, to me, read like a horribly boring chemistry textbook. So this one's going to be lower for me. It didn't have the usual Sanderlanche at the end, although I did love the exploration of one of the characters basically going through PTSD. I love that part of it, and I did enjoy the book overall, but I think as far as the 4 Stormlight novels, I think it's the weakest of the 4. I do think, however, it's probably a lot of it is just going to be setting up the 5th book, which is probably going to be a whole lot of action. But I think Rhythm of War is a B tier. In fact, let's just put it here between Bands of Mourning and Shadows of Self. So let's go back, see if I change my mind on any of these. S tier, Emperor's Soul, Way of Kings, 2 Mistborn, 1 and 3. Yeah, that's right. A tier, Words of Radiance, Well of Ascension, Warbreaker, Secret History, Shadows of Silence. Yeah, that looks good. B tier, I think I'll put Bands of Mourning above Edge Dancer. And yeah, that looks good. C tier, let's put Elantris up there a little higher. It never gets enough love. That's about right. Well, that's my ranking of Sanderson's Cosmere novels. I would love to hear your feedback. If you love some of the ones I put lower, if you hated some of the ones I put higher. I know a lot of you may not have loved the Hero of Ages as much as I did, but if you've read these, I'd love to hear in the comments below if you enjoyed that. So please like and subscribe if you haven't already. You can follow me on Twitter and Goodreads. I'll put that information in the description below. Check out some of my past videos. I really enjoy making these videos and interacting with all of you. So thank you for watching. Until next time, goodbye.